Empire. Today, I am joined by Frank Lunn. Frank, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Welcome. My pleasure.
Frank is a entrepreneur, a businessman, an author of 2 books, former veteran,
Mm-hmm.
and he's also one of our Lincoln Land Bitcoin meetup members. I've had the
Mm-hmm.
pleasure of knowing Frank over the getting to know him over the last year through Lincoln Land Bitcoin. We've been in business ventures together. We've been bouncing ideas off each other. We've basically been learning on the fly together. And I want to have him on today to really just kind of dig in on his Bitcoin journey, how Bitcoin
Mm-hmm.
helped him like simplify life and that kind of stuff. Frank, again, thanks for coming on. Um,
My pleasure.
I kind of want to start out just briefly
Mm-hmm.
pre Bitcoin. So
Yes.
we said you were in the Army,
Mm-hmm.
and you mentioned you were in Desert Storm.
Yes,
So thank you for your
I was.
service.
You're welcome.
Um, where was your mind space back then in terms of like life? Because that was before you had an idea of what you wanted to do moving forward.
Right. Well, I've always been an entrepreneur my whole life. And even in college, I'd started a business and I got my commission. I went through ROTC and got my commission and was an officer in the National Guard and Reserves. And even through all of that, I still had just this ambition of starting businesses and being excited. And so I'd kind of deferred my training. I'd been to airborne school and I was kind of a hard charger, but I had deferred some training. I was actually going to be a pilot, as a chopper pilot and go to Fort Rucker, Alabama, but I missed my window. And instead they ended up sending me to Fort Knox, Kentucky to be a tank commander. So I was down there for 6 months doing all of my training. And when I graduated, my basic course was August of 1990 when the Gulf War started.
Oh,
And so again, at that time I was lean, mean, fighting machine, not like now where I'm a little like dad bod,
yeah, I get it.
extraordinary.
Yeah.
But they instead of combat arms, they put me in a transportation logistics unit, and I was really pissed about it because I wanted to see action. I want to do things. It was really a good thing because for me, I've always been entrepreneurial. I'm always able to see angles and ideas, but I wasn't necessarily good at the logistics part of things. And business is 2 parts. There's business development and relationships and sales. But if you don't have the operational part, it does not work. And so as painful as some of that was, it was really good training for me. And when I came back from Desert Storm after it was all over, I was able to, I had a job, I was able to get a good job. But the next business that I'd started was in the credit card merchant services world. And I had a lot better grounding for a true business and what needed to happen. And so started a business in the credit card merchant services. And at that time, this is back in the early, mid 90s,
Mm-hmm.
most businesses actually didn't accept credit cards. And so what we did was we looked in, living in Bloomington, Illinois, creating kind of an artificial metropolitan of Bloomington, Springfield, Champaign, Peoria. And that gave us kind of a bigger area. And so we were able to set that up and develop that. And then about a year later, ATMs, the automatic teller machines, were able to be outside of banks. And I saw that as an opportunity. And so I got involved in that quickly. And we morphed our credit card business into the ATM business. And that was such a new thing at that time. And we didn't really have the capital to expand. So what we did was we just figured out where all the problems were on the supply side and then also on the demand side and just kind of put ourselves in the middle between vendors and resellers and things like that, and built a decent sized network, built a business. The name Kahuna was, I was kidding with our lawyers. I said, if this ATM thing works out, it could be the big kahuna. And so as a joke, we crossed off Nuco and wrote Kahuna. And so developed the Kahuna ATM into a decent business. And in 2012, we got one of those kind of offers we couldn't refuse and ended up selling a big part of that, had a decent 7-figure exit. And pretty excited and just decided that I love entrepreneurship. And so I use that to help start and fund other businesses as an investor and partner, and just really trying to grow and help other entrepreneurs.
Man,
Um,
I don't.
I came into Bitcoin. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I don't want to jump too far ahead, but everything I'm hearing is like
Yeah.
setting you up for this Bitcoin realization. It's like the nodes on the network, connect. Oh my gosh! So we're
Oh yeah.
2012 is when you heard about Bitcoin.
Yeah. That was what 2012. So it really was, and I stayed in that. In even though I sold the majority of the business, I stayed in the industry till about 2015. And 2015 is when I got all the way out of the ATM industry, and I had a decent amount of wealth at the time, at least for me. I mean, I love the game. I love the pursuit of developing businesses and opportunities.
Sure,
I love collaboration. I see myself more as a catalyst than a doer. I don't necessarily want to be the person doing things. I want to be that person next to the
sure.
person doing things with the ideas. And it's kind of like, you don't want to have a boat. You just want to have a friend who has a boat, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or right now, to me, it would be, I don't want to have a smoker. I just want to have a friend who has a smoker. So, um, but then, getting into like 2017, I mean, I got into Bitcoin early, but I didn't really do a lot with it. But I got really excited when all of the I don't know if I can swear on this, but the S coins, the
Go
shit
for it.
coinery, um, I got really excited, and this was the kind of the green eyed monster of, oh my gosh, there's so many things here with DeFi and CeFi and all of the different
All of it.
aspects of what I saw the promise of altcoins and all of these different things, and I got really excited about all of that, and so I dove into all of that
Mm.
early. And the one thing I've kind of learned, and one thing we talked about on a different time about Bitcoin, how Bitcoin humbles you. I mean, and Bitcoin is uh, it is the Yoda of Yodas, that will give you lessons in ways that you'll never really understand until you can look back on them. And I started to learn about Bitcoin, and the more I learned about Bitcoin, the more I realized how much I don't know. And there was a transition, so I need to kind of explain. But one of the businesses that I had invested in early on got involved in a legal battle with a client, and I got sucked into that. And over a 7-year period, it got to the point where I couldn't win, I couldn't lose, and I basically had to really lose everything and start over. And it was really terrifying and difficult.
I
And I
bet. I
lost
bet.
whatever wealth I had, and I had to start over. And so I had no Bitcoin, no. I'd already kind of lost all of my my shitcoin type stuff because it just didn't. It was a rug pull for sure.
Yeah.
So starting over earlier last year was really humbling, and I had an opportunity, and I reflected back on my entrepreneurial journey. And one of the things that I've learned is the complexity. Rube Goldberg's. I'm a huge fan of Rube Goldberg's in the some of the State Farm videos where they have the uh, what's the name of the group that does the there's a
The chain.
music videos that they do.
Okay, go.
Okay, yeah, love those Rube Goldberg videos. And I realized, oh my gosh, my last probably 20 years as an entrepreneur, again, I've made millions of dollars. I've lost millions of dollars. I've had to pay taxes on millions of dollars. All of these
Mm.
things, the complexity of having a $1 million, multi-million dollar business, and having to do a wealth hustle of having a job, but also creating wealth, and having to learn the stock market, having to, I've invested in commercial real estate, I've invested in
Mm.
residential real estate, I've invested in the stock market, and I've had some level of success with all of it. But oh my gosh, the complexity of all of these things, and you're constantly having to do this, what I call the wealth hustle, because it's constantly, I mean, again, you make money, but then you have to learn, how do I pay taxes on this, or how do I support this? I'm doing commercial real estate. How do I deal with tenants and all of the issues there?
So
So
what I'm
starting
hearing,
over, oh,
yeah,
yeah,
I bet it's got to be not only
it's
frustrating, like you
exhausting.
said, humbling, but what I'm kind of
Hmm.
hearing that common theme throughout is as an entrepreneur, and I guess this is I've never been an entrepreneur in my, I was in the military, I was an educator, so I didn't have to really think with that part of my brain. What you're doing is trying to simplify whatever you're focused on for your customer, right? You're trying to bring
Hmm.
these two separate parts together. You're always and multiple
Right.
separate parts together. And when you mention the shitcoiner days, I'm a recovered shitcoiner. I'll admit it. I remember those days too, where I'm sitting here like, oh, how do I make this bell or whistle do this, and how do I connect this to there, and oh, now I got to go over here, and I got rug pulled too. I also was able to avoid a lot of the rug pulls, but I found myself after I started going towards Bitcoin, looking back on that and saying, all that, all of that is extra unnecessary complexity.
Oh, yes.
It's not
I mean,
needed. It's wasting
right.
my time, and you're using all of your time to do all of these things for yourself and for others. And then when we look back, it's like, shoot, you know,
Well, that you hit it right on the head. I call it now the wealth hustle.
yeah, you mentioned that.
So I had built a business and I was employed by my business and I was making, a good six-figure income. I was making money that I could use for the future, but the hustle of wealth of what do I do with this and having to, either hire people and pay them to manage my money or to try to learn things. And some of it was good and some of it I learned the hard way and you pay that price one way or another. Um, but it wasn't simple. I mean, again, if you have commercial real estate, which I loved, but man, it's all good until it's not. And the complexity. So after my wipeout and I had to start over, again, it was humbling, but I'm thinking as I have some time to reflect, and I had a few Bitcoin books and just some other things, and I started just get this because this would have been early last year. So Bitcoin was not on its meteoric rise, um, but at the same time, there was something about it. And as I started to become a student, again, including reading books like yours, which I loved, because it
Thank
gave
you.
me a historical perspective. And my view of Bitcoin is so different now, and I really feel like Bitcoin was not necessarily invented as much as it was discovered, and it was discovered in layers. And that's one thing I loved about your book was it really kind of put some of those layers and gave context. And I'm a student of history, and there are things that like I think I know all these things, and I was really humbled reading your book. And like there's probably a good maybe half that I really thought, okay, I know this. And then there was other parts where like, wow, I had no idea that was, and then seeing it in the context of what Bitcoin's true genius is. I'm a big fan of Buckminster Fuller. I think he's one of the most underrated, heroes. The geodesic dome and some of his things, and his quote about, you really can't create something new within the same system. You have to create something else that's better in a different way. And I butchered that totally,
I know what
but
you mean.
I see so much Buckminster Fuller in the design, and I see other people. So when I think of like who Satoshi Nakamoto is, and I don't think of it necessarily as a person, I think of it as a groups of people over time and different layers. It's almost like a reverse onion in a way.
Standing on the shoulders of giants, right?
Yes,
Well,
yes,
Ed, I want to
and
mention,
it's a big epiphany.
yeah, I want to mention, just full disclosure, I paid Frank handsomely to plug my book. I'm just kidding. But about that book, I always think, and for those of you who don't know, I wrote History Echoes Bitcoin last year, and it
Mhm.
uses historical examples to show how the properties
Yes.
of Bitcoin have been with us throughout history, and people have just been trying to solve those separately. Bitcoin has the potential, I believe, to solve all of those problems: permissionlessness,
Yes.
censorship resistance, mutability, across the board, all at the same time in this one protocol. But my thing
Hmm.
is, those examples throughout history that I used, you could put any of them in there,
Hmm.
and everybody has their own experiences and their own perspectives. And it's like, I challenge people to look at, first read the book, and then
Hmm.
look at the world, and how do you see this or that relating to the need for permissionlessness, or
Yes.
to, how does scarcity affect you? So I appreciate
And
that, but
that's really kind of, I probably need to land the plane. I'm sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but the simplicity of Bitcoin versus the complexity of traditional finance, the complexity of having to learn the stock market and realizing that what a scam that is. But the simplicity, and I, as an entrepreneur, in some way, I embrace some of the complexity, because in complexity it becomes opportunities. How do I serve people? And for stockbrokers, or for stockbrokers, the traditional stockbrokers, their business went away in a lot of ways when you had the online stock trading. Then you still have financial advisors, but um, as you start to really look at Bitcoin and its just magnificent power, but it's also simple. I mean, here's this. Let me give you the manifesto of
it's a little
Bitcoin
code.
simplicity. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
buy
very
it,
small code.
hold it. Yeah, buy it, hold it. Don't ever sell it. Oh my gosh, it's such a versus the complexity of here's a 58-page manifesto of all of the things you have to do with other wealth accumulation, storage, and everything else. Bitcoin, you buy it, you
It,
invest in it, you're actually trading your fiat dollars that are weak into something strong. And the other thing is Bitcoin over time increases in value, whereas your dollar is like melting ice.
yeah.
And
Uh, I,
it's such a different paradigm.
if you think about it,
No, I'm
like,
sorry.
yeah, no, I'm just rolling with you here on this. It's like, first of all, the why for why we're doing this. The
Oh yeah.
why we're always trying to solve all these complex problems is so that we
Hmm.
have more time to do the stuff that we want to. I think
Right.
that gets lost. I'm not saying on you, but a lot of people, it gets lost that,
No.
like, why am I doing all this? Why am I in the hustle? Why am I on this rat
Right.
race? And it's really to have more time. We're trying to simplify life, and technology just generally, it's been stated multiple times, is deflationary, and that's a good thing, because over
Yeah.
time we should be making things more efficient. We should be making in that process, making things cheaper, simpler,
Hmm.
right? And
Jeff Booth's book, Price of Tomorrow.
oh,
I
right,
think that's the
right.
right title, but that is a huge, from an entrepreneur standpoint. Wow, total paradigm shift. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No,
that,
you're absolutely right.
wow.
And anybody who hasn't read that book, that was like it was the Bitcoin Standard, Price of
Yes.
Tomorrow. I was done. I was sold, and then everything else is just
History
helping
echoes
to
better.
round.
Yeah.
Yeah, um, yeah. I find myself starting to see things in terms now, as energy flows, and
Yes.
we're trying to, when we go down those complex rabbit holes to try and come back together, we kind of, our energy kind of dissipates. We're not able to focus our energy.
Right.
Right. And Bitcoin, being this very simple code in
Yeah.
so many different ways, helps us focus that energy. Right.
Right.
Um, so when we talk about, you mentioned Rube Goldberg's, and I gotta say, so I'm an elementary teacher, and I used to
Hmm.
do a engineer in the classroom activity, and
Hmm.
their job was to make a Rube Goldberg out of just
Nice.
household junk, and then we would go into a competition versus other schools and see how they were able to do that.
That's
And I
cool.
actually used OK Go
Yeah.
videos, and I still do actually in other regards.
Hmm.
I absolutely love those. But really, if you think about a Rube Goldberg, what is it? It is just one big elaborate energy transfer.
Right. Right. And in the least efficient but most cool way
Yeah,
possible. You know, the
absolutely.
bowling
And
ball hitting the mouse traps, jumping over and hitting the fans and all that stuff. So
So in a weird way,
it's
it's
fun.
like it's fun and it really challenges the students to think outside the box. But in this context, it's like a little sad because it's like we're not focused on the why. We're teaching you to do all of these things and we're
Right.
make things more complex to get to the same end. Which, while that's cool in its own right, it's like maybe we should focus on, hey guys, let's figure out the simplest way to do this. You know what I mean? I almost as much as I look back on that fondly, it's like, shoot,
Hmm.
we're teaching them the wrong strategy to life
Right.
almost.
But that's right now what I find is, again, the paradigm that I was in before, my blinders of building current income and future wealth was complex. It was complex. It was expensive. I mean, it was like, how do you make $1 million, but it costs you $900,000 to support that is not really efficient, you know. And with Bitcoin, it's simple, and it's still, you know, there's still layers to it, and there's a lot of things to learn. But if you just take the essence of how do I take my energy from today, if I want to store it and transfer it into the future, how do I do that? What will do that? Well, if I put it under my mattress, it's that money is not going to be worth more tomorrow in any way, shape, or form. If I put it in the stock market, it may have some level of increase, but it's not going to increase at the rate of inflation. So at the very least, or at the very best, with current system, I'm just treading water. Bitcoin changes all of that.
Hey y'all, are you new to Bitcoin? You looking for a way to safely and securely store your Bitcoin? Check out the Bitcoin Advisors. These Bitcoiners are professionals that will provide you peace of mind so you can sleep soundly at night knowing your Bitcoin is safe. Remember to tell them Zoom Out sent you. You were talking about the complexity of the wealth journey. I think this
Mhm.
is a good time to go ahead and kind of pivot. So, how is
Yeah.
Bitcoin helping you now? You've been at the top. You had a fall from grace,
Hmm.
and you're building yourself back up, and you're trying to simplify life through this complexity that the world has become.
Absolutely. So the paradigm that I was in before was, again, what I call the wealth hustle, which is building businesses, creating streams of income, trying to figure out how do I take the money from today and invest it so that I have something more for tomorrow that's going to keep pace with inflation or do better than inflation. And when you really look logically, um, there is nothing other than Bitcoin that I see that can do better than inflation, and that's going to store the energy from today into the future and actually be worth more than it is today. And that's a huge understanding. I believe, I mean, that to me is a tremendously toned down version for normal people. I am now a what we call like a toxic laser-eyed maxi of Bitcoin, and there are thousands of other coins out there. I get it, and all these potential use cases. But when you really
No,
study, and I've done that, there
I
is only Bitcoin.
I think while you that's one way to describe you, and I love it. Another way to describe it is somebody who has the humility and the stick to itiveness and the focus to be able to analyze rationally and logically not only the how but the why. Bitcoin
Right.
is able to channel that energy. So the simple way I like
Mm-hmm.
to describe it to somebody who's new to it is as a simple math equation. It's like one
Mm-hmm.
half, 1/2, right? 50%.
Right.
1/3, 33%. 1/4, 25%. If you leave the numerator alone, and let's just say the numerator in this whole societal thing is goods and services, right? The denominator
Right.
is the money supply. And the more you increase
Mm-hmm.
the money supply, your share or whatever you're comparing it against is diluted, right?
Right.
And the reason Bitcoin, just on a simple math level, is able to maintain that is to outpace inflation, or however you want to say it, is because of
Mm-hmm.
the 21 million supply cap. Like there will never be more than
Right.
21 million. And just on a
Right.
simple mathematical level right there, we're going to print more money because we're in an inflationary system.
Mhm.
Its only way it can continue is to continue to steal from our future selves, is to print more
Right.
money. So right there,
Wait,
that
wait,
right
wait.
there
Hold on a
stores
second.
that
Hold on a
energy.
second. So I mean, if I cut my pizza into more than 8 slices, do I not get more pizza?
There's the
I
laser
mean,
eyed maxi coming out. There it is. I love
yeah.
it. I don't think
I,
anybody will
I,
get that
I cut my
reference,
I cut
but
my pizza into 16 pieces instead of 8, so I have more pizza. Right?
yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's not how this works.
No, not at all. It's simple math. But there's more to that. It's like then people will be like, well, why can't we just make the dollar that way? And it's like, well, there's people that control it. And
Right.
if you give people control, they're incentivized to do things with it so they can maintain their power or
Yeah.
grow it or stuff
But
like that.
just this one time. I mean, we're just going to go off the gold standard for just a little bit. I mean, it's just temporary, though, right? I'm sorry. This is
Never
my
let it.
sarcasm.
Yeah, I dig it.
Sarcasm alert. Well, just this one
Never,
time, though. We're
never
only
let
going
a
to print
good.
money more this one time because we need to, because it's an emergency, because it's 2008 and everything's crashing. And if we don't do it this one time, Tim, everything's going to be destroyed. But then after this
Never let
one
a good
time,
crisis
we'll
go to
never do it
waste.
again.
Never let a good crisis go to
Exactly.
waste. It's like, oh, Y2K,
Right.
we gotta, okay, whatever. It could be anything, right?
Mhm.
Uh, so that
Right.
allows us to channel energy into the future, as Michael Saylor says, right?
Yes.
But then that, if you could just accept that, if you could understand that on the simple mathematical level,
Hmm.
what it's taken us, both of us, time to go down that rabbit hole and all the different rabbit holes to understand how that affects other parts of life. So yeah,
Right.
you're trying to do your hustle, and that's commendable, right? You want to take care of you and yours. There's
Right.
nothing wrong with that. And we've now recognized that just the monetary system we're in causes all these other things, but that also has second and third order effects. And that's the stuff I've been like
Yes.
spending my time thinking about, is like how does that affect life elsewhere? And like when going back to energy
Hmm.
flows, like how does Bitcoin help simplify the flow of energy elsewhere? Well, like if you're hustling all the time, just this is just one of millions of
Yeah.
examples. Kind of like I said in History Echoes Bitcoin. It doesn't matter what episodes from history we use. The fact is still there that it helps maybe not fix things, but incentivize things. So, like for example,
Hmm.
if you're having to hustle all the time, one, you might not be able to come home to your family and spend quality time with them, right? Because you have to keep hustling. You have to
True.
the wheel of the rat race
Right.
increases. But then, even if you do, you're probably
Hmm.
stressed from all the stuff that you have to do that you don't really want to do. Whereas if your money
Right.
made continue to grow or at least maintain its value over time, then maybe, and maybe I'm stretching here, but a little of that stress is gone. And then maybe the energy that you have can be channeled to more, just spending time, laughing, enjoying, right?
Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
see,
You're
do
so
you see
right. I
that?
mean, oh, I do. And the more, so again, as an entrepreneur over the last 20 years, I've helped start probably between 12 to 20 different businesses. I've been sued multiple times for different things. And I actually ended up I won a Supreme Court case. But in that process of winning, it cost me millions of dollars, and I had nothing to show for it. But at the same time, the exposure to risk and to people, and complexities, it continued to grow and grow and grow. And so the thing I love about my new life now, even though again it's humbling and it's frustrating in some cases, but the simplicity of just understanding Bitcoin and wanting to serve other people in that Bitcoin space. And candidly, that's one of the biggest challenges that I see about Bitcoin right now is the lack of complexity in some ways takes away a lot of an industry of like how, the complexity of the stock market and financial advisors and tax and all of these other things creates industries. And right now, looking at you and I have talked about how do we serve others on this journey, their Bitcoin journey and discovery, and in some cases, that's a challenge with Bitcoin is it is much more simple and it's much more sovereign. The goal in the past was if I'm going to work with Tim Niemeyer, I need to show Tim how ignorant he is and how I'm the only person that can help him. And Tim, you don't need to worry about it. You just do your thing. Trust me. Let me take care of it. I'll just take a small little piece, but it's yours. And you don't need to worry about it. Don't worry your pretty little head. I'll take care of it. And Bitcoin is opposite of, look, Frank, or I'm going to use you again, Tim, look, I don't want you to take your sovereignty. That's yours. You need to own it. And if it goes wrong, it's yours. If it goes great, it's yours. And it's a different paradigm because we are domesticated, because we live in a great country, and we want to be served, and we want people, experts in our health and experts in everything else, and we abdicate and instead of delegate, and it's come back to bite us. That's why we're so fat and unhealthy and other things. Now, as we start to learn, the bad thing about Bitcoin, I need to warn everybody, is once the blinders come off in one area, it comes off in other areas too. I'm just now starting to, on the health side of things, with the seed oils and everything else. It's like, oh my gosh, the more you
Welcome.
realize, and it's painful. There's parts of me that's like, I wish I was just ignorant again. But no, I don't wish I was ignorant again.
Ignorance is bliss. But you
Yes.
bring it up. You're bringing up kind of like the paradox. You were talking about self sovereignty and but also serving others. I just want to challenge the listener to think about this. It's like the inflationary system that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're trying to help somebody else or yourself, you're bleeding your not just your value, but your time and energy. Because of that
Exactly.
inflationary nature, when you put forth effort, it just dissipates over time. And even more so, since you're self-sovereign in Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
I could be helping you. You could be helping
Mm-hmm.
you. Whoever's helping whoever, because Bitcoin is a closed system, and I think Saylor put it adiabatic system. You'd probably be more
Yeah.
around. It's a closed system, so
Right.
it doesn't matter who's helping who. We're all helping each other. But in a
Absolutely.
fiat inflationary system where that energy just dissipates, it's an open system. So your efforts
Mm-hmm.
aren't as meaningful. And what does that do to society over time? They lose the incentive to
Right.
continue to push because then they realize that it doesn't matter what I do. It's just going to be wasted. It's just going to go away. So screw it. I'll just wait for my government check that is nominally more and more, but real value goes less and less over time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a complete, utter lack of respect,
Yeah.
the fiat system,
Right.
for individuals' energy, an individual's time and energy.
You're so right. You're so right. And it's embarrassing. And I know people will take offense and say we are domesticated. You look at what's the difference between a wolf and your pet. If you have a dog, well, the dog is domesticated, and that's good for the dog. But the dog still, if a dog is with somebody who does not care about the dog and treats it poorly, the dog's not going to do anything about it because it's been domesticated. And we have been domesticated. We've been lulled, and we have been taught to just be comfortable. And it's important. Bitcoin humbles you. And the more you learn about Bitcoin, and it's so simple, but in that simplicity, there's so many levels. I kid that, Bitcoin is an Occam Pareto Fibonacci fractal. And just to break that down,
That's a lot.
Occam's razor, it's simple. I mean, it's the simplest is the best. And Pareto principle, the 80-20, the big doors move on small hinges. Fibonacci, I'm still working on. That's beyond my level. I get it, but I can't explain it. Fibonacci is nature, and of nature, and the seashells. And the fractal is the same repeating pattern forever. And Bitcoin is like that. And I haven't put all that together yet. But you can see in the design, it's not a man's design, it's God's design. And there's something about its purity that is an opportunity to give us back sovereignty. And that sovereignty brings responsibility. And I think, that's the one thing that I look at is
Mm.
opportunity mixed with responsibility. Because if you have all opportunity but no responsibility, it doesn't work. If you have all responsibility but no opportunity, that doesn't work. But if you have opportunity and responsibility in tandem with each other, man, that's powerful. And that responsibility. And that's why I love what you're doing. I mean, you and I become friends because we're on our own individual sovereign paths, but anything that we can do to support each other in the support of Bitcoin and the community of people and giving them back their sovereignty and their freedom and their power, man, that's powerful. And that excites me as a warrior from the past in the, when I was excited about things that really weren't important. But now I see being a warrior for things that are important. And I have a faith and I believe in God and God is using me in this. And I see God in Bitcoin. Now, if you're an atheist or you have a different religion, that's fine. That doesn't take away, it doesn't hurt me in any
No,
way, shape, or form. Just
shouldn't.
how I believe.
Well,
Sorry, I got a sermon
no,
there. And
no. Hey, preach, brother. Um, yeah, you mentioned responsibility, and we were talking earlier about how that our current system kind of doesn't really promote responsibility,
Right.
or doesn't incentivize responsibility. I'm sure you're familiar with and I'm going to butcher the phrase, uh, good men create good times create weak men create
Hard times.
hard times create weak men. And I mean,
Yes.
I feel like we're on that. I finished the book in the last few years, The Fourth Turning, and then
Yes.
there was a
Strauss and
well, and then one of the gentlemen passed away. One of the authors passed away, and the other one created uh, oh God, the follow up to that book, The Fourth Turning,
okay.
and we're in that.
Yes, we are.
Hard times create weak men, and what are the hard times?
Our good
The
times
hard
create weak.
or good times, yeah.
Yeah.
So hard time, yeah,
Easy
yeah.
times.
Thank you. Good times create weak men create hard times. We're in those
Right.
hard times,
Yeah.
but
Kicking the
but
can
that's
down the road, debt.
the
Yeah,
lack
you're
of
100%
the lack
right.
of need for responsibility, because our
Yeah.
energy has been repeatedly shown to be less than valuable.
Yes.
So so what does that create though?
It creates an
And that
opportunity.
it
Yeah.
creates an opportunity, but it also creates people living in hard times seeing either you got to shit or get off the pot. You know what I mean?
Right.
You got to become responsible. And it's just it's just interesting to see how Bitcoin, when it came around kind of near the peak
Yeah.
of the hard times, and maybe the hard time
2008.
the hard times is that increasing complexity from the system. Now I'm just speculating here,
Right.
but from everything I've studied over the last 5 6 years, it's just like it's kind of easy to see how our current monetary system has created all of these issues and has
Right.
created the weak people, because I don't blame them. They don't have the ability to focus their
Right.
energy, or they don't have the desire to be responsible. They don't have the need to, because it just
Hmm.
they see their energy dissipating. So hopefully Bitcoin's coming around and saying, all right, guys, here's the solution to simplify
Hmm.
life. The only thing is you got to have that responsibility. And as you
Right.
mentioned, that responsibility starts with humbling yourself. It starts with
Hmm.
trying to understand what the problem is before you can understand the solution. And
Right.
the solution, we believe, is that Bitcoin, and not only buying Bitcoin, more
Hmm.
so the learning about Bitcoin, learning
Right.
how that simplifies things, how does that help
Preserving
you
it.
challenge
Yeah.
your energy.
Right.
Uh,
And
Go ahead. I was getting on my little sermon there, but
no, I was just going to say that the domestication, we live in a society that says, okay, if you don't have a job, we'll give you money and we'll do these things. And I've been recipients of that. and but it dulls us. And when you don't have to go out and kill your own food and or grow your own food, we're domesticated. And it's I'm not trying to say that to be offensive because I'm in there,
mm-hmm.
but it's a different paradigm we have to realize. So again, back to if I'm new to Bitcoin, say, Tim, take care of me. Here I'll give you money and you buy it for me and you store it for me. And when I need it, you show me my ledger of how much money I have. That's not how Bitcoin works. And Bitcoin is harder in some ways because of that, because I have to learn and I have to take responsibility and I have to carry my own ledger, and keep track of my own property. That is different than what we've taught about with stockbrokers and with, middlemen and other things. So
What
it's
was
just
the
it's
phrase?
a shift.
Was it Ben Franklin or somebody, like, you can have freedom or you can have safety and security, but you can't have both, something to that effect.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yes.
yeah, and that's where we're at. Frank, we're wrapping up on the end of time here.
Yes.
I First, I want to just I appreciate you not only for coming on, but also for sharing your journey. That, I mean, while you mentioned there's humility, there's also, I don't even know what it is, but the ability to share that personal story and share the struggles is inspirational, and hopefully it'll help the listeners and help them see the way out of that rat race, the way out of this just
Mhm.
unnecessarily complex world. Is there anywhere that you'd like to throw off to? I know you're on Twitter, but you're on a couple other
Yes.
places as well.
I'd say Twitter is probably the easiest place right now. Is just I think it's Lunn at Twitter, or X as it is now. I'm working on some other things related to building a Bitcoin business around helping people, but it's still a little bit early. That business is called eWave, the letter E Wave, just related to the entrepreneurial journey of Bitcoin. I don't have any assets set up yet for anything there, but um, I just
Well,
appreciate this opportunity and the community that you're part of and you've introduced me to. And um, we're all in this together. We're all in this alone, but together,
I love it, and
individually, but
I, I
together.
I fact checked you. It's at FLUNN on
Okay.
Twitter X. So
Yeah.
Frank, thank
You'll
you
see
for
red
coming
eyes.
on. Yes, you will.
Laser
There's a laser-eyed Maxi. I love it. Yeah, I'll catch you out on Twitter. Hopefully, you'll come to a meetup here soon. We got
Absolutely.
March closely coming. Frank, thank you for coming on Zoom Out.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jim.